Hello, everyone. It is Sunday. It's actually Super Bowl Sunday, believe it or not. And I don't do Super Bowl, I don't do football. A long time ago, I decided I wasn't going to do football. And so I stopped. I thought the whole thing was rigged. Everybody, the refs were calling the games, or somebody was calling the games. And it was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like I'm not going to watch football. So I decided, since I'm not going to watch football, I never really I never said my Bigfoot story completely from start to finish, and just only had it like for one, like in one sitting, and it was always in the middle of some other things. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to put my Bigfoot sighting, I'm just going to make one video for my Bigfoot sighting. And since I don't do football, so and I have all this time on my hands, and everything's quiet. I mean, there's no traffic there. The Facebook slowed down to a crawl. I thought, hey, what better time to come on and talk about Bigfoot, right? So here I are, and I'm going to talk about my sighting that I had in 1987. And I'm doing it live, so my chat is on, and I see Odie came in. Hi, Odie. Happy birthday. I know today is your birthday, so happy birthday, Odie. And hi, Winner, and Amanda, and T. Gray, and P. Eaton, and Connie, and Jan. I love you guys, and I guess y'all don't like football either. So we're all in this mess together, huh? The no football mess. Hi, Steven, or is it Stefan? Like, I'm not sure. Did I get that right, Steven, or do you have it? Do you say it another way? I have friends that say it all different. Right on. Okay, so I got it right. Cool, man. Well, welcome everyone, and welcome to all those that are going to watch it later, recorded. I just wanted to get this down for posterity, like all in one place. Nobody has to go searching a video somewhere, because I have told my story in a few places, and I even talked. I even told my story for Monsters and Mysteries in America, but I also told the story of the Bigfoot Wars, and I also told the story about the windows at the spot. One day I'll talk about just that too. I'll do a show just on the windows and talk just only about that. But today is my Bigfoot story, and it all started like I didn't believe in Bigfoot, okay? And I had I started like as a kid, when I was like a little kid, my dad and his best friend and his best friend's kids, we would go out hunting like all the time. Like in the summertime, we were hunting rabbits and fishing, squirrel, gray squirrels, stuff like that. And then in deer season, we would try to get a bear tag. We would try to get a doe tags, and those are on drawings. Bear tags, doe tags. We also bought pig tags, so we would try to get wild pig. Actually, we could do wild pig all year round, but during the year, the deer season, we always had our pig tags. If anyone got the drawing for a doe or two does, we would have doe tags, the regular buck tag, and if we made the drawing for the bear, we would have a bear tag. And that year, 1987, I actually drew a bear tag, and I was stoked. And my dad had passed away the year before. Ah, man, I do have to stop and say I'm really saddened about J.C. Johnson. Um, he was a really good man. I talked to him a bunch of times, chatting in Facebook. We interviewed him for Paranormal Central a couple times. In fact, I took those, I had those under because Jeffrey told me to. I put all the videos, the shows Paranormal Central in private, so that, I mean, it was his request. But when I heard that J.C. Johnson passed away, the first thing I did was make those two shows where we interviewed him available to everyone. I took the monetization off of them. I'm not making any money on it for those. I mean, I don't make money on YouTube anyways. I haven't got paid from YouTube in probably 4 months. I probably make $6 a month, and you got to make 100 to get paid. So, but only I didn't want anyone to think that I'm trying to use his death or anything like that for any kind of finance or anything like that. So, those are demonetized. It is solely so that people can go back and see our brother and researcher J.C. Johnson. I mean, he really was a real frontiersman, a real tracker, a real outdoorsman, somebody that really experienced a lot of stuff like black-eyed children, wolf type bipedal monsters, Bigfoot, a lot of paranormal. He was the real deal. Um, and it's gonna be sad that he's gone. And I'm like tearing up. I mean, we had a lot of chats inside Facebook. So, but anyways, I just want to say, rest in peace, my brother. Someday we'll see you again. Okay, now I got to compose myself. Sorry about that, you guys. But he really was a good friend. I never met him in person, but I always wanted to, and I was looking forward to it. So I guess I'm going to have to wait a little longer, to see this guy. But for all those that did know him really well, you're really lucky to know him. All right. So, um, yeah, the Bigfoots, I think there's like sighing of relief. All the monsters that he was chasing. I have a feeling, that he worried the monsters, because he was hot on their trail, and he has some scary stories. I mean, I tell you, some of our chats in the middle of the night, because he wasn't sleeping well, so, and neither was I, so we were up in the middle of the night chatting on Facebook and stuff, and he scared the life out of you. He'll make you not want to go back in the woods, at all. Even though seeing a Bigfoot and in person, right up close and personal, would do the same thing to you. Okay, so in 1987, my dad passed away in 1986, and we annually went on a deer hunt. And so it was 1987. It was about almost exactly 1 year that my dad passed away. His best friend didn't have his hunting partner anymore, somebody that they hunted together since before I was born. And I think I was around 20 something, at in 87. Let's see. Yeah, I was like almost 30. So they, he was missing his best friend. His son couldn't go. He had a job, and he couldn't go. So that meant he was going to go hunting alone for the first time in a long, long time. And he called me up and asked if I had the free time to go up for like 2 weeks. And I told him sure. So my dad, we were gun collectors. We reloaded our own ammunition. We had several different uh, types of rifles, long rifles. We had 22 shotguns, several different kinds of 30-06, like Remington, Winchester, all, like, and different, like the 64, Model 64, we had 03A3 Springfield 30-06. We had the Remington 6mm, but we had all the different kinds of rifles. But my dad bought one that he was real, real proud of, and it was like his ultimate uh, big game gun, and it was a 300 Weatherby Mark 5. And I had got the bear tag, and a lot of times bear, when you see them, they're far. They already smelled you and or heard you, and they're already way like 600 yards away, or at least 400 yards away before you even see them. It's very rare that you get, and if you are close to a bear, they can run really fast, right? And usually you surprise them, but they move so quick. They're not as quick as a Bigfoot, but pretty quick, and they don't give you much of a shot. So if you're gonna get a shot at a bear, usually, at least for me, unless you're really good stalking them and stuff like, um, they'll be 400 yards or better. And so I brought the Weatherby 300 Magnum in case I was gonna get that 500 or 600 yard shot at a bear, and I could take it down in one shot. I had my own loads for the 300, and I could put, not bragging or anything, but only it's all in how you load it, the bullet size and the powder and everything, and the recipe that you use. And I could take 5 shots and cover it with a nickel at 300 yards. So I knew that if a bear came out, I was going to be able to, take that bear down with one shot, and maybe two, depending on what angle, how he presented himself in the shot. If I even saw a bear to shoot. The only thing that I regretted was when you're hiking around, a 300 Weatherby Magnum is heavy, you know. So I mean, like, it doesn't get heavier as you go along, but it sure feels like a ton after 2 or 3 hours hiking around. Let me tell you, it would get heavier and heavier and heavier. So that's what I was packing. That and a 9mm, and it was, I guess we were on our ninth day in, and we had hunted the whole. We actually parked. We were we parked on this road that was a dead end road. We parked right at the beginning of this dead end road. And the road actually, when you went to the end of it, there was a big parking area, and it was to a trailhead, and it was a real popular trailhead going on. I think it was the Pacific Trail or something like that. And a lot of people would, a lot of people would park there all summer long. So I think the Bigfoot, get used to the cars parked there with nobody in them. But we had hunted all around, you know, down, a couple of miles down where we camped at, all around that area, and drove, different places up and down the road. And but only on the ninth day, we were sitting in the truck, in the camper that night, and my friend says, let's hunt, let's drive up, before before sun up, when it's still dark. Let's get up really early, and let's go park up at the dead end at the trailhead. Because if you don't follow the trail, but you go over the ridge, and you're almost at the top of the ridge, it's like at the tree line, there, like, anything above that, and there's no trees. But we're like right at the edge of the tree line, very, very little trees, a lot of bushes and stuff like that, but not very many trees. And he said, we'll get there like right before the sun comes up, and we'll wait until it's just light enough to walk, and then we'll hike over the hill to this high mountain lake. And we hadn't seen any bucks, you know. We followed these 6 deer around for a few days, hoping a buck would jump out. You know, you never know, you know, because the deer are weird. Like the bucks are really smart, and they'll stay off in the edge of the woods and stuff like that, and they'll send the does out and see if they get in trouble before they come out, especially in deer season. When you know, if they hear the rifle shots going off, they know that it's deer season, and they'll kind of like use the does like a decoy. And but you know, we followed them all over, and at one point we even walked up. We snuck up on them and used the wind coming in our face and stalked up to them, to as close as me in this camera right here I could slap it. And when you know, we were standing there, and this deer is only like 3 feet from me or less, you know, and he kept looking at me. As long as you don't move and they can't smell you, they can't see you. You're invisible, right? And it was like one of the funnest things I ever did. And that was the day before. So then that morning we drove up and we parked facing the direction we were going to go, and it was pitch black dark. We're sitting there drinking coffee, and we're, you know, talking about strategy, you know, what we're going to do, find a go over the hill, over the ridge, and find a place to sit down where you can see a big, large expanse of real estate, and the pieces of the lake. And I think it was Jackass Lake, and the trailhead was called Norris Creek Trailhead. All right. So we were sitting there, and it was almost light enough where we could start walking, but you couldn't, like, if you looked out the window, you could not see the ground. It was still so dark that everything was, you know, pitch black. So, and we didn't want to use flashlights because we didn't want to like telegraph that we're coming up, you know, up the hill. The flashlight, you know, flashing around and stuff, it'll alert the animals that you're there. They'll see the beam of the flashlight. So we didn't want to do that. And as we're sitting there, and it's starting to get light enough, and it's just, I'm starting to be able to barely see the bushes, you know, that's only like 10 feet from me. And I was like, you know, I was getting antsy, like it's time to go, it's time to go. And I was looking up at the top of the ridge, and I seen this bush moving. You know, it was like quaking, shaking. And it was like, whoa, you know, there's something in the bush up there, you know. And I alerted my buddy, and I pointed it out to him, you know. And the sky was starting to get light, and this was right on top of the ridge, so you could see the silhouette of the bushes and everything against the sky. And it looked like there was a bear in the bush. And I really was starting to get excited now, you know, like I started putting some rounds in the 300, and it had a 6x18 variable scope with a rangefinder on it. And I knew that was, you know, a long shot right there. But I know not to shoot until the sun actually comes up. But it's illegal to shoot, and you don't know if there's a game warden around. So, you know, I knew I couldn't shoot him right then, but only I knew that I might get a shot at a bear. So I was getting myself all ready and everything. And the bear stood up. And the outline of this man was standing up there. And it was like, how did that guy get up there? You know, what is that guy doing? You know? And my buddy's like, he doesn't even have a gun or a light or anything. Like, his hands were empty. He wasn't carrying anything. And it looked like he was wearing black, you know. And it was like, who in the world walks around in deer season wearing black? Like, who would do that? Like an idiot. That's who would do that. So we're watching him and, talking about this guy wearing black, and we don't know what to think about that, about this guy wearing black. And I was telling him, well, maybe, and then how did he get there? We were down camped at the end of the road where, the only way he had to go by us to get there, to get up there. And then there was no car up there. We were the only one parked up there. It was like, where did this guy come from? Like, was he hiking all night to get up there, or did he hike up there and camp up there? I mean, we had, how you go through all the scenarios trying to figure out what's going on with this guy, and so now it's about light enough now where I could see 30 or 40 feet. It's still pretty dim, down where we are, but the sky is getting pretty bright, and you could see his silhouette really good, and it looked like he was wearing this big heavy coat. I mean, like, it looked like his top half, like back in the 80s, they had those down coats, it looked like the North Pole kind of thing, and they're all puffy. And it looked like he was wearing something like that. And he was standing up there and he was actually looking down the hill towards us. And I know he could see we're in a 3/4 ton Ford pickup truck with a big giant cab over camper on it, and I know he could see that, from whoever, and he started to walk down the mountain towards us, and it was becoming really obvious he did not have anything in his hands, and that was like really puzzling. Why, what was he doing there? Why doesn't he have something in his hands? No gun, no light, no, dressed in black. I mean, but here he comes. Only he wasn't like walking like he wasn't walking right. He was walking like a man, just like a man. I thought it was a man. Okay. There was no reason for me to not think it was a man. There was no clue that it was not a man. It was a man. Okay, that's what I thought. But only he was stalking. Okay, how we stalk deer, you take 3, 4, 5 steps and then you stop and you freeze. Even if you don't see a deer or anything, when you're walking through the woods and you're hunting, that's how you walk. Because if you stop and there's a deer really close to you and they see you, uh, if you stand there for like 5, 6, 8 minutes without moving, it will spook them so bad. They can't stand there because they freak out and then they'll jump out, right? And you'll get the shot. If so, so he's walking like that, like he's hunting, right? And it was like, what is he hunting with his bare hands, And he would take like 6 or 8 steps and stop. And sometimes he would be looking off to our left. Sometimes he would be looking off to our right. Sometimes it looked like he was looking straight at us, And it took a while for him. I would say he was around 700 yards when we first saw him. Maybe, right in that area between 600 and 700 yards. And he keeps coming down, and he was like take 5 steps and stop and stand there for 10 minutes, sometimes as high as 15 minutes, just stand there staring without moving. He was doing it just like he was stalking something. So, and I was looking all around like, what does he see, or what is he stalking? What is it that he's hunting? Like, is he gonna jump on top of him or something? He didn't have a gun. Like, what in the world? So then me and my buddy are talking, my dad's best friend, and as he's coming down, I tell him, really, he's probably a new hunter or something, because he's dressed in. It was obvious he was dressed in black too. I mean, black jet black clothes, like what the heck, So I told my friend, you know what? When he gets down here, I'm gonna chew him out. Because actually, if I would have been a new hunter, somebody that was totally unexperienced with a 300 Weatherby Magnum, I would have shot him when he was in the bush. I mean, I could have took the shot. I mean, I could estimate where, where his rib cage was and heart and lungs, and I could shoot. I could have took the shot and shot into the bush. And I've seen other hunters that their first year out and stuff like that. I've seen them do that kind of stuff, and wound things like bears, and then the bear get away, right? Shoot a bear and then they wound it, and then the bear gets away, and then you have a wounded bear running around where you're hunting, right? Not a good thing to have. And I mean, I've seen that. So I was going to tell him, you're really lucky that you have seasoned hunters, experienced people that you're walking up on, because if it would have been less, newer, somebody that really wanted to get that shot, they would have shot you already. You're really lucky, and you should never wear black. I mean, I'm talking about all about what I'm going to tell this guy, right? And my friend's like, yeah, we'll really, let's run him through the coals, yeah, good idea, good idea, and couldn't wait for him to get down there. I was kind of excited to get after this guy because really I could have shot him. I mean, I really was that excited at first. Well, the sun's getting brighter. Pretty soon, it's getting really bright. Like we could see him really good. Then it was like, and he's getting closer, and it was like, wait a minute, that's not looking like a man now. All of a sudden, it's not a coat, big puffy coat that he's It's not a big puffy coat that he's wearing. What in the world is that? And my buddy's like, it could be a Bigfoot. I'm like, a Bigfoot? Like, what? And then, I'm really looking. And then it gets about, I guess he's like now, like, I would say, half a football field or just less than a half a football field from us, like 40 yards or so, 40, 45 yards. And he had stopped and he was looking to our left, and the sun peeked over the mountain and actually lit his whole front up. And I mean, I could see him. He was standing there head to toe. I could see everything, right? His whole body, I could see it. It was lit up. He was lit up. And he wasn't looking at us. And I think the reason that he wasn't looking at us is because he, well, I'll explain that in a minute. There's a reason why he didn't think we were in the truck. And so then I'm like, where's the binoculars? I want to look at him really good because I could see his body really good. I mean, he was cut. You could see the muscles in his stomach. You could kind of see through his jet black, shiny fur. But you could kind of see the skin through it. And you could see the muscle definition. And what really was tripping me out was the shoulders and biceps and arms and stomach. I mean, he was ripped. It was the most muscular thing I ever saw, like, whoa. And I didn't even look to see if it was a male or not. I just assumed it was a male by just the way it was looking at it. It didn't have, boobs or nothing like that. But I mean, it did. It had giant pecs, but they were muscular. It wasn't like a female at all. It was total alpha, looking to me. And so then we're in this truck and I'm like, where's the binoculars? And he goes, in the camper. I'm like, man. So then I'm grabbing my rifle and I had zoomed it in all the way to 9 power because I thought it was a bear way up there, and I was actually preparing for a long shot, not something that was going to be 40 yards away, right, or closer even. So it was zoomed way in, and I had forgot to zoom, pull it back to 6 power, and I'm trying to, and then I don't know if anyone knows rifles. A 300 Weatherby Magnum has a really long barrel, and there was no way that I could get it, turned in the truck. And then also it has eye relief, a longer eye relief, because if you have it too close to your eye when you shoot that gun, it will pop you right in the eyeball, or the eye socket. And I had already done that once. I when I first got it, I wanted to try it out, and I put a scope for a 30-06 on it, and didn't have the eye relief, and I shot that thing, and bam, I had a big old circle around my eye. But I learned, well, I'm trying to look at it through the scope, and I realize I'm not going to be able to do it. So I decide to open the door, and I think I'm going to like sneak and open the door and then put the rifle down, and then I'm just going to look at it. I'm not going to shoot it, right? Not at all. And I pull the handle on the door, and it's an old 1968 Ford, and it goes clunk. And just, I mean, there's no noise, at all. And we have our windows down a little bit, but not all the way down. So that thing clunked, and his head turned and looked at the truck, and I was looking at him, and he was kind of looking at me. And I threw the door open and stepped out, and then I dropped the rifle between the door and the windshield, and he took off running to my right, which would be his left. And he was running, and he was swinging his arms like that and looking over at me, and he was running like the wind. And I realized that the scope was zoomed in, and I couldn't look in the scope because he was moving so fast, and there was bushes and stuff around. I thought, I might lose him. I have to keep my eyes on him, because if I look in the scope and miss, it's not adjusted right, he'll duck out, and then I won't be able to see his face. So I'll wait till he stops. I'll just follow him with the rifle, and then when he stops, I'm going to drop my eye in, and I'm going to look at him. Well, he starts running. My buddy starts yelling, don't shoot him, don't shoot him. I mean, he's yelling at the top of his lungs not to shoot him. It's a human, And I told him, I think once or twice, I'm not going to shoot him. I'm not going to shoot him. But that wasn't real reassuring to him, because I was known at the time to take the shot. You know what I mean? Like, the first opportunity, I will squeeze off around. I mean, I was known for it. And he just kept on yelling, and I'm like, I'm not, and it went behind this tree, and it didn't come out the other side. I actually went by the tree with the rifle, and then came back, and then I dropped my eye in the scope, and then I'm looking up in the tree. He's yelling. I'm like, I'm not going to shoot it. I'm not going to shoot it. Where did it go? He goes, it's a human. It's a human. I go, I know. I'm not going to shoot it. I just want to look at it, He goes, okay, but don't shoot it. I'm like, I'm not going to shoot it. But it never came out from the tree. And my eyes were watering. My body felt like I want to run. Like, I felt like I could make one big giant 1 mile leap if I had to. I mean, it scared me that bad. And so I'm like, I go, where did he go? Where did he go? And he's like, he might be up in the tree. Look up in the tree. So I start looking up in the tree with the scope, and I don't see anything, And I guess about 15 minutes goes by, and I'm watching the tree like a hawk, and anywhere around there, like I'm really looking the area over. I didn't know not even a peep of this guy, No tree peeking, no anything. He was gone, and I thought he was still behind the tree. That's what I thought. But what my mind was running, like scenarios, like if I would have shot him, because I did think about taking the shot, believe it or not. I did think about taking the shot while he was running, only I knew I couldn't, because I couldn't put my eye in the scope. And but then, I also was thinking about how big he was and the strides that he had and how fast he was moving and graceful and powerful. I mean, his head didn't bounce. It was like he was like gliding across the across the area, and there's nothing between me and him at all. And I'm seeing everything. You know what I mean? There's nothing, no bushes or rocks or nothing. I mean, he is in the wide open and he is tearing it up like he is getting out of there so fast that it was unhumanly fast. You know what? Really unhumanly fast. So after I kind of like composed myself a little bit, my knees weren't shaking anymore. They still felt kind of like jello-y, kind of. And my eyes were still watering and my hair was still standing up, but only I was able to move and walk. I mean, there for a minute, all if I was going to move, it was going to be running. And I didn't want to run, and I knew I shouldn't run, but only, man, did I feel like running. I'm serious. I felt like running. That scared the you know what out of me. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Honest. It was like, whoa. So then I told him, you know what? I'm gonna go track him. And he's like, don't shoot him. I'm like, I won't shoot him. He's like, it's a human. Don't shoot him. I'm like, okay. And anyways, while I was walking away, I'm thinking, what if I did shoot him? What if there was more of them? What if there was two or three with it? Like the deer that we follow around. Deer are always like they're together. The only thing I ever came across that was all by itself was bears and mountain lions. But I don't know what this is, and I don't know if there's another one. I don't want to have it on the ground shot and then be walking up and my full attention on this Bigfoot, and then while I have my full attention making sure it's dead because I don't want it to get up, if this is a if thing, but this is what was running through my mind. If it got up, I'm not going to take my attention off of it. So while I'm doing that in my mind, I thought the other one's going to come up and pop my head off. It's like this thing is so big, it would have no problem just going. You know what I mean? Like it could rip your head off like no problem. In fact, the idea of it ripping the door off of the truck even came through my mind. Like if it turned and came at me when it was, at one point it was only like 20 yards from me as it went across from me, and I was watching its muscles flex and everything, and it stretching out and all that as it ran and looking at me, but only I couldn't see its face good because it was so jet black. Oh, only right here I could see like a flesh color, and it was like a dark brown red color around its eyes. But everything else was jet black, shiny jet black, like well kept, if you know what I mean. Like it wasn't all it wasn't all snaggly fur or nothing like that. I mean, it looked like a black lab that somebody brushed out, right? I mean, that's what it looked like, that color too. So I was too chicken to go straight to the tree. So I went to where it had stopped and was standing where it started the run. That's where I started. I started right there because I was too chicken to go to the tree. So I went over there and I was looking for its track, and it's like it's up high on a ridge, so it's all decomposed granite. So it's like a coarse sand, with some pine needles, but not very many because it's like tree line, right? So there wasn't a lot of forest duff except around trees. But this was not this is in the wide open, so mostly it was like decomposed granite, like a real coarse sand. And I found its tracks, and they were massive, long, and wide. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And I mean, it made me freeze for a minute. Just the look of the track was like, it sent like a chill up and down my spine, like, whoa, like, oh my God. Like, what is that? I mean, a bunch of things was running through my head too, like, oh my God, back when I was a kid and we were going up and down the creek and something happened, and I didn't know what happened, and all these little things that happened over the years that I couldn't explain, they were coming to my brain, and all of a sudden, this is what could have done all those things that I couldn't explain all my life, right? And I just wrote them off. Well, here's something that could have made those things. I mean, it explained everything to me at that point, and I was thinking, oh my God, it was that big. Like, oh my God. In fact, I think I was even vocalizing, oh my God, like, oh my God, that is a huge track. Huge, 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 big. So I'm thinking, okay, he went that way, and I start looking at the ground, and I'm looking about 5 feet, and there's no track, and it's like, okay, where's his other track? I know he ran this way, and I start looking further and further and further, and then like 15 feet, there's a track over there, and I'm like, what? And I look in between, and there's no track. The next track is 15 feet. I'm like, oh my God, again, like, oh my God. I look at my buddy in the truck, like, oh my God, oh my God. I look back at the track and I start walking to it, and I'm still looking for another track because I never seen anything that had a distance of between, nothing I ever hunted, even a running deer or anything, had that far of a stride. There was just nothing I ever saw in my life. This is a first, right? And I was freaking out. I'm going to tell you now, that really started freaking me out. And I was getting goosebumps all over. My eyes started watering again. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. And I get to that track, and I did it again. I'm starting to look like 5 feet. I'm thinking maybe it was just a fluke that, that distance. Maybe it stepped on something and I missed the track, in between. So I'm like looking and looking, and the next track is 15 feet. I'm like, whoa, holy crap. And I look at my buddy again, like, oh my God, like, holy shit, And then I look back at the other track, and I look over to the other track. I'm like, oh God, this is, wow, and it's really big track. Like, wow. I was totally blown away just by that. So I follow these tracks, and every one of them was like 12 or 15 feet. And it was like deep, like it was digging into the sand with its toes, kind of like. And it was amazing, he was almost like grabbing the ground with his toes, and he was kind of slinging the dirt back a little bit, like a foot or so. And it was kind of messing up the heel part, but, I never seen anything like that in my life, So then I got to the tree, and I realized, I seen that it looks like that he turned sideways in the air, and he landed on one foot sideways, and then he slid in behind the tree perfect, and he pushed up. Now there's pine needles and stuff because it was a giant ponderosa tree, probably 4 feet around. It was a pretty big tree. He slid in and slid like 3.5 feet and slid in behind the tree. And then the tracks went straight back up the way he came, back up the hill, the ridge that I just watched him walk down, And I was like, oh my God, whoa. And then I'm looking, and the tracks are again, they're like 15 feet, and it's kind of level ground at first. Like for the first 2 or 3 steps, it was just, pretty level. And then it started to hit that ridge and go up. And he was really, when he got to the ridge, then the tracks went to like 9 feet in between. They weren't quite as long as 12 feet, but I mean, they weren't much shorter, but it was still less. I'm saying like 8 or 9 feet. And he was still, and this time, he's really his toes were grabbing the hill, and now he's throwing the dirt back like 5 feet as he goes up the hill. And I track him all the way to these bushes, and it's like a little deer trail that goes through the bushes, and the whole hillside was like sparse trees and these bushes and brush, deer. We call it buckbrush, and I stop right there, and I'm thinking, okay, I am not going in there, because he could just be right around the bush. And how big he was, and I really didn't know how big. I'm just guesstimating by, how big the stride was, that he had to be big, and he could just reach out and grab me, and in fact, I didn't even feel safe right there at that point, because if he decided to jump around the bush, there wasn't much I could do about it. So I was kind of like freaking out, and I decided I would look back and see what my buddy's doing, and I look back over there, and I can't see the truck. All I see is the tree blocking the view of the truck, and I can't see the truck at all. The whole truck, I can't see it because the tree is blocking the whole view of the truck. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he knows. He knew that he could put the tree between me and the truck, and him, and he could go straight away, and he could avoid me seeing where he went. In fact, both of us in the truck did not see where he went, because you can't see. I mean, he did it perfect. Okay, now everything I hunted ever before, deer, whatever it is, they'll run up behind a tree and they'll stop and peek, and then they'll run on, right? They don't know they could use a tree as cover to get away. So I'm standing there, and this is all like dawning on me. I'm thinking, oh my God, not only is he pretty big, he's pretty smart, right? I'm thinking like maybe even as smart as me. I mean that hunting wise and escape wise, or like wood wise, or whatever you want to call it. He knows, and now I'm blown away. And then, then all of a sudden it dawns on me that I just watched him walk down that mountain for an hour, more than, maybe even, I'm thinking it's more like 2 hours, but I'm putting 1 hour, a little over an hour, but I actually think it was like almost 2 hours, because he would go a few steps, stop for 10, 15 minutes, then go a few steps, stop for, and the least he even stood ever was probably 3 minutes. Then at the most, probably 15 minutes. Each little 3 or 4 steps. But only I had watched him come down the mountain, and at some points, he was behind the bush, but I never could not see him when he was walking down. The bush only came like to his belly button area. At any point, there was never a point that I couldn't see from his waist all the way up. And then the rest of the time I could see the whole thing, because he would step around, the trail would go around the bush, and I could see his feet all the way to his head. But there was times when he was behind the bush and I could only see from the waist up. And I'm looking at this bush, and I'm like going, oh my God, the bush was 3 feet above my head. Like, I'm standing there looking up at the top of this bush, and it was 3 feet above my head. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's its waist, right? That's the waist. That's his waist. No wonder his track. I mean, then everything just starts coming together, like 15 feet track. His belly button or his waist is like as high as the tree, and that's 3 feet above my head. Like, how tall is this thing? Oh my God, like at least the bush was at least 7 feet tall. So his waist was the half point, So, I'm estimating 12 feet tall, but it could have been taller than that. I mean, I'm not kidding. It was huge, like huge. And then I couldn't get back to the truck fast enough. I mean, I only, and I couldn't like turn my back on the bush either. You know what I mean? So I started walking backwards. I took the safety off and I'm like going backwards and I think, dang, what if he in runs around the bush at me, and my buddy can't see, and he's gonna. Then I started like going in circles, and went all the way back to the truck. And my buddy was laughing at me. And I got back in the truck. He goes, "You still want to go over the ridge?" I'm, well, not really. I was scared to death. I was ready to go home about that time. Screw going up over the ridge. He's like, "Oh man, don't be a sissy." I'm like, "You'll go over the ridge," and I started explaining to him what I found, and he was laughing. I'm thinking, this is not funny. None of it is funny. That just scared the life out of me. The woods are now never the same for me. What is so funny to you? I don't get it. Like clue me in on the joke because this is not funny. There's a monster running around, a huge, huge monster that's fast, powerful, graceful, and smart, that knows that it can use trees and things to hide itself and get away from us, or sneak up to us. That, I mean, the possibilities were endless on what it might do, like in my mind. So we're sitting there and he tells me, well, that's like the fourth one I've seen in my lifetime. And he starts telling me about his sightings. I'm like, why didn't you ever tell me? He goes, because you'll laugh at me. And he was right. I would have made fun of him. I would have laughed like crazy. I would have thought he was old and losing it. But only I told him I wouldn't have laughed. And he's like, he goes, yes, you would. You would laugh at me. In fact, he goes, I've told people before and they always laugh at me. He goes, I'm not going to tell anyone what we saw. And he said, if you tell anyone and I hear about it, or I'm standing there and you try to tell someone that I was with you, he goes, I'm going to deny it to your face. He goes, and I'm going to laugh at you. Because I'm going to make fun of you because, he goes, nobody's going to believe you. And that was like going through my head, and I told him, okay, if you say so, let's go. I have a 300 Weatherby Magnum and I'm proficient with it. And if I have enough time, I could take out a Bigfoot. And then I'm thinking, if it grabs me and tries to run away, I'm just going to lay it up on its skull and boom, blow its brains out. I mean, like, I made a plan right there, and if I lost my rifle, I still had my 9mm. I could still lay that up on its head and blow its brains out. And I had, 10, 13 shots or something like that. So I could make it cheese, I could cheese brain him. And so we go ahead and we walk, never hear anything, never see anything, and I'm doing circles. I'm behind him, but I'm like watching our flank like crazy, and when we got to the top of the ridge, something was making him nervous. I don't know what it was. He didn't clue me in, but only he said, this is far enough, and he said, actually, we got a late start because because of what all just happened, we should have left, maybe an hour and a half before we left. And he was right about that. And it was starting to get a little bit too late it was getting too late. It was, high noon and the deer bed down and everything. So we decided we're going to go back, and then we got in the truck and we drove back down to where we camped at the road, at the start of this little road. And we're on like day 9. We still have 5 more days, and he's sleeping in a camper, and I have a '67. I think it was a Impala station wagon, right? 2-speed transmission, 327, and I had folded the seats down, and I was sleeping in the station wagon. So that night I couldn't sleep, but I did keep my head under the sleeping bag because I didn't want to see anything looking at me. You know what I mean? Like I was so afraid. I mean, I was petrified. I was scared. I couldn't believe there was no way. I was totally not hunting anymore. I mean, I was like totally, that paralyzed me from doing anything. I mean, it totally blew my whole paradigm out. I mean, I had no desire to go walking in the woods after that. In fact, I only stayed till the next morning, and then I told him, you know what, I'm leaving. I'm going home. You can stay if you want to, but I can't. If something looks in the window and I hear something, and I pull the sleeping bag back and look and see something like that looking, that far away from me, like a foot, I will die right there. My heart will stop because that is scary, right? And so I had no desire to be there anymore. In fact, I did not go hunting, camping. I did not go back for 6 years. I stayed out. So earlier I told you why I think that when I was walking back to the truck, okay, I noticed it was like a overcast cloud. There was clouds in the sky, but you could see the blue. But it wasn't overcast, but it was like there was clouds flying by, so it was like partly cloudy, I guess you would call it. But as I was coming back to the truck from the tree, I realized I couldn't see my buddy. The windshield was slanted so where I could see the sky on the windshield, but I couldn't see him. And I realized that as he was coming down the mountain, he couldn't see us. The windshield was reflecting the sky. So he did not know we were in there. So he probably thought that it was hikers. So because all summer there was cars. Like we went up there 3 weeks before we hunted, and we parked there and scouted the area out. There's actually an old mine right there that we went and checked out 3 weeks prior to deer season, and we were just looking for deer sign, we actually didn't stay right there, but we stayed up there about 4 days, and we were figuring out where do we want to, park and camp, and where do we want to like start hunting at. And we go like, a week or 2 or 3 before the season, and we kind of scout out the area and figure out what we're gonna do. And then when we get up there, then we can like alternate our plans and stuff like that according to what we see and stuff. So when we went up there prior, there was it was like still warm. Like right now it's warm. I'm in a t-shirt. I just came in from outside. It's like 75 degrees. And in deer season, it's warm, in the daytime, freezing cold at night, but warm. But only I never went back, right? I never went back. For 6 years, I didn't go back. And it changed my life. Like, I mean, totally changed my life. I haven't went deer hunting ever since. I mean, not at all. Now, it took me 6 years to get over, like, to grow a pair and be able to go back up there and actually stay the night, even though I would not sleep the first few years that we went up there because of how fast and agile and big this thing was and powerful. I never felt safe in anything, man. The only thing I would feel safe in is a tank. And then I would wonder if it could tip it over, like I feel like a little 3-man tent is a sack lunch for these things. You know what I mean? Like if they're wild and they're hungry, you could be a munchie. You know what I mean? Like that never left my mind. And so deer season was out. Deer hunting was out. When I finally did grow a pair to get up there and start looking around, I still packed. I still carried weapons. I mean, a lot more too, and more ammunition and everything. I mean, I carried a whole backpack full of stuff just in case. I was ready for a war with like several of them if there was more than one, not knowing if I could even kill one. Tell you the truth, but only I wanted to know. I was like driven, like obsessed. I had to see it again. I had to find tracks again. And I went back and I found tracks, and I started finding tracks. And I found tracks that were smaller, like they were like size 10, size 10 shoe, and bigger. But only I was finding that my gut feeling that there was more than one of them was correct. I was finding evidence that there was more than one, and I don't know why I never saw this before. Was I not looking? Like, like it started making me question everything that I knew. Tell you the truth, but like I mean, it really did. But that's what happened. That's what got me obsessed with seeing him again. And since then, I've seen him twice. Really good too. I mean, like good visuals twice, and then like out of the corner of my eye, I've seen him probably like a dozen times, and shadows and stuff like that at night. But I've had two more really good sightings, and they're there. They're here. They're up there. They are in family units. They're ninjas. They're forest ninjas. They are really adept, masters of their terrain or their domain or however you want to call it. They're impressive. And and I love it. I still love it. I'm still scared. I've had him roar at me like King Kong. I mean, absolutely roar at me like King Kong, where my insides were vibrating. Like, I mean, my whole chest cavity was like. I was estimating it was at least a half a mile or more away from me, and it was roaring like King Kong, and I was vibrating. Okay, they're big, and they have lung capacity, and they swim, they climb trees. They're amazing, amazing. But that's my story. I wanted to get it all the way down, from start to finish. I've never done that. There is no video anywhere where I've actually just did my story only, and that was my point on coming in today, was to document just my story. So nobody, I mean, there's little bits and pieces of it in videos and stuff like that, and maybe I've told it to somebody somewhere else, but I don't know where that is, and just so people can find my actual sighting, what got me obsessed with them, and why I know they're there, and now that was 1987. Here we are, 30 years later, and I'm just as obsessed. I'm just as in awe. I'm just as fearful, respectful. I mean, every adjective you could think of, like I'm still get goosebumps in the mountains when they throw rocks and stuff like that. When they whistle or they start hooting like an owl or acting like little animals, and when you realize it's not the little animal you thought it was, and it's this huge animal over there behind there, that's trying to fake you out and stuff. I'm still like I'm sold. You know what I mean? Like it's I'll never stop. That now I'm gonna check out the chat. I see it going by. I don't know what everybody was saying, but I'll take questions or anything if you guys have questions. Um, yeah, I saw one by a river, actually in a town. Okay, in a town. This is in a town called Reedley. We actually watched one run. It was rock clacking. In fact, it wasn't doing anything. It was like rummaging the bushes. And I was telling the guys, hey, I think there's one right there, but I'm not sure. Let's see if we can get it to do something, And I told one of my buddies, he there was some rocks, like gravel rocks, kind of big ones, and I told him grab them and knock them together, and then everybody be quiet. And he knocked them together, and almost instantly we heard knocking coming back, rock knocks coming back, and we're in a city, okay, in a city limits where people live, and a river runs through the town, okay, and they're right in the town. We're sitting in a park, and here goes the rock knocks. And Jeffrey turns on. He had a iPhone with one of the iPhone FLIR things on it. Where it's a FLIR, but it's for an iPhone, and it couldn't see us. I don't think. And we had just walked down there, and we're walking on grass, so it couldn't hear us walking. And when we clacked the rocks, I think that it thought it was one of them, and it probably didn't. It was probably thinking, who's over there, And he, right after it clacked the rocks, then I heard it moving, and now there's no lights. Okay, it was dark down in that river bottom, and we couldn't see it with our eyes, but there it goes across the FLIR, and you could see as it came around the bush that it saw us. I mean, it could see us in the dark. And as soon as it recognized that we were not one of them, it took off running. And we watched it run through the FLIR, down and then run into some bushes down there. And we actually came back the next day because it was too dark for us to go down there. And it actually crossed the river running, crossed the river onto the other side, and went into these bushes. So we waited till the next day, and we came back in the morning and went down there, and we couldn't even hardly walk in this. It was like really deep sandbar thing, and we had difficulty walking on it, and this thing just glided right over it like nothing. But yeah, they do, and they can swim and everything, so no problems. Well, hello, Merlin Wild and James. How are you? Let's see, Roland. Yeah, I'll never lie to you guys. That really happened. It was totally a life changer. Hey, Chris. Was the Super Bowl over already? No. Okay, like I only the black one. I seen one like a brownish reddish one at the spot where we go, where the windows were, and I'll talk about that, the windows thing one day. That's a real story too, that I would like to get my. There was five of us, but only I would like to get my. I'm sure all of us. Hey JG, I didn't see your name. Now I do though. How's it going, man? Man, I would love if any of you guys have an encounter. Hi, Sully. Any of you, let me know. Let me know when you guys have time, and we don't have to do it live. You know, I can record. Like we could, uh, you could call in, and I could just record it, and we could sit and talk. Yes, they do. That is exactly right, Stephen. That's how the one that I watched run. He ran like a ninja. That's how I thought of it. You know how they have a bigger stride, but they're they don't bob up and down. Like bounce. They're smooth and powerful, like nothing I ever saw. And they swing their arms kind of like a speed skater, kind of like, you know. That sounds good to me, Chris. I don't think I have anything next weekend. I don't think. I'll look on my schedule. We have a lot of doctor stuff coming up this week, though. Sadly, actually next week too. Not this week and next week, doctor stuff. But the weekends I think are clear, and I have to do it before. I think it's like the 14th or somewhere in there, because I might wind up in the hospital getting a surgery on the after the next one. So I got to be, I don't know. I mean, it depends on what they find on this next test. So I'm feeling pretty good though. Now that patch, it took a little, like it takes a little while for the medicine in a patch to soak into you and start working really good. And then when you take it off, it takes a little while for it to work out of your system too. But I'm starting to feel really good. No heart attacks or nothing now, man. I feel so much better. I thought I was going to die from that thing. Yeah, I have a friend that they're up at Kings River. That video that I had up for a long time that me and Adolf did, where we were in the back part of the Kings River. They were up there, and they had just got there, and they were gonna camp right by the river, or they set up their camp, and they had their family. There's like 3 or 4 families, and it's where they do the whitewater river rafting and everything back there. And they're gonna swim and fish and do all this stuff, and do the whole weekend. And they had set up their camp and set up a campfire, and they were getting ready to do s'mores with everyone, and everybody was sitting around the campfire, and it was like just almost dark. And a Bigfoot jumped off the side of the hill, and they say it jumped into the fire. I think it was probably straddling it, and it probably hit a rock, like budged a rock that rolled into the fire, or moved the fire and made them think. Because I don't think they were looking at the fire when that thing landed. I have a feeling they were looking straight at it. And they said it was huge, and it looked at everyone straight in the eye, and panned, around looking at him, and then growled at this guy's girlfriend, now wife, and then took like a step and jumped into the river and swam away. and they said it went under the water. It never came back up. They left everything. They got in the car as fast as they could and drove away. They left everything. Whatever wasn't in the car got left there. And the next day, um, a bunch of them went back with guns and everything. They're expecting to have a problem getting their stuff, if their stuff was even there. And they went back and collected up their stuff, and then they showed up and they're giving their stuff away. They're not going up there ever again. His girlfriend, then now wife, is still seeing a psychiatrist because it looked at her and growled. It was looking right in her eyes and growled. It freaked her out so bad. I mean, it freaked her out. I mean, they gave away their guns, they gave away their camping equipment, everything. They are not, and I don't even want them to know that there's stuff at like the lakes and rivers down here, because they don't go up to the mountains anymore, but they still like go to the rivers down here. They are in for a big surprise, that they're down here too, like they're down here too. That should really freak them out, man. That would freak them out so bad. And they wouldn't want to go anywhere. Yeah, I don't know why. They gave up all their guns. You know, they divided them up. Like I got some stuff, another friend got some stuff, and I told them they were up there, and they always were laughing at me. Everybody thought I was crazy. Yeah. Well, not people aren't calling me crazy anymore, and I never cared. You know what I mean? Like I didn't care if people called me crazy. I know what I saw, and it was huge. Hi, Susan, and you could call any. They could call me crazy. They could call me any. They could call me names. I really don't care. You never know. One day, one of those things might cross their path, and they might like need some Depends and toilet paper and stuff, because that's what it does to you. It changes your life all the way. It changes the way you think about mountains. It changes the way everything, like camping, all that. Totally different now. You're not the same ever again, Because I mean, growing up, we would go camping for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And I would, without even, I had a 30-06 and a 6mm, and several pistols and a shotgun. But I would leave all that in camp, and I would go take off and go wander around the woods, fishing the creeks and doing all kinds of stuff all by myself. And I never thought of anything except for things happened that I couldn't explain, right? And there was a few times, quite a few times as I growing up, that something happened that, or nothing would happen. This is the weird part, that fear would come on me, a total fear, and I didn't know what it was, and I would run all the way back to the camp, right? And I never knew what that was that caused that. But after I seen a Bigfoot, I knew that's why that fear came on me, or that's why the rocks are being thrown in the creek, huge ones, And I never could explain it, but it didn't scare me away, except for the fear. When they threw the fear out, that would make me run. And I would be, the whole time I'm running, I'm thinking, why am I running? What am I running from? I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. There's no reason for me to be running, but only I was so scared I had to keep running. And I wouldn't stop until I got back to the camp. And I was only like 9, 10, 11, 12, like in those, that age. And I mean, I wouldn't stop. Not until I got all the way to the camp. And then they would even ask me, because I would get in there, and sit down, and I wouldn't leave either. And they would be, so what happened to you? Like, I don't know. What's up? Like something scared me. And they're like, what? I go, I don't know. And they would just laugh at me and make fun. But once I saw one, all these unexplained things that happened to me over my lifetime, all of it made sense. All of it. I mean, it answered all the what was that things. Yeah. It was, yeah, it'll change your life. Yeah, I mean, we when we lived in Yosemite, um, I would sit with binoculars, and a lot of times, if there was climbers climbing El Capitan, I would just sit there and I would watch the climbers climbing the rock, El Capitan, or I would watch the hikers going up the zigzag trail up Yosemite Falls. But I would I would sit and look at the mountains all the time, and I never saw anything. I saw a bear a few times all by their up going up the hill, and I'd see deer and stuff like that, but I never saw anything like that. I mean, in the many hours and hours and hours that I would sit there looking at the mountains, I never saw one of those. And I think it's because they mostly move around at night. In the daytime, I think they keep themselves in the cover. I don't think they come out in the days as much. And if they are in the day, it's the what I call the watchmen or the guards, the day guards, the ones that are, well, the other ones are sleeping and stuff like that. They have these guys out on watch so that if anyone or anything comes up on them, they can get the group out of there or protect themselves. And I think that's the only ones you'll find in the daytime. I'm not sure about if they've ever been seen inside a cabin or a house. I don't know. I haven't heard of anything like that. Um, so I don't know. There's some stories that I know, some Native American stories where they've went in the house, but they were after, like they went fishing and brought the fish in the house. They cleaned them outside, and then they brought the fish on the inside, and they were going to barbecue them. Okay, so like they cleaned them on the front part of the house, and then they went in the house and put them in the house, and then they started a barbecue grill in the back, right? So they're out there in the back preparing the grill and doing all that, and everybody's out there, and the fish disappear, and they think that's what got it because there was tracks, but they didn't see it in the house, but their fish were gone, and they found tracks and stuff, and they were able to track it. They never did find the fish, but it would sometimes leave things for them too, kind of like a gift because they took their fish. Oh God, that would scare the life out of me, man. I know when we lived in Yosemite, I was in a bunk bed on the top bunk, and we didn't have curtains because we lived where there's no neighbors or anything, so there was really no need to have curtains. And there was some nights, and I was a kid, and I didn't know anything about Bigfoot, but all I know is I couldn't sleep, and I just couldn't take my eyes off the window either. I felt like something was looking at me in the window, and I would just lay there looking, and yeah, it is, you know, scary stuff. Cool. Well, I hope I don't scare anybody from going in the mountains. Go in the mountains, go camping, do all that stuff. Just be mindful and don't be alone. That's the biggest thing that I could say is don't be alone. For some reason, they're opportunistic. So, like, if there's more than one person, they don't know what you're carrying or anything. Like, they don't know if you're going to whip out a 44 Magnum and start shooting at them or anything like that. So, they're more weary when there's more than one person. But if you're only one person, then you might not come back. You might be the guy that disappears. Even if you're with two people, that could happen if one, like one guy takes off walking and leaves. And man, I am so guilty of that. Like, I would go up with my kids and go camping and stuff like that, and leave them in camp to all of them together. But then I would go take off walking by myself, deer hunting, and man, once I saw one, I didn't do that ever again. But only, man, I am so glad nothing came and got one of my kids or anything like that. I mean, I that made me think about that. Yeah, I love the mountains too. I mean, I grew up there, and I felt always one with the mountains. You know what I mean? It was like my place to go and meditate, and it was actually like a healing thing too. You go up there and sit by a creek and just not even with a fishing pole or anything, just sit there and spend the day walking around and hiking around all by myself. I found old mines and stuff that aren't on the maps, and you know uh, yeah, no bright colors. Yeah. um, what happened to me? Is that what you're saying, Jay? Hi, Jay. Nothing happened when I would go off, and I would deer hunt for several hours. I would leave like they were still asleep too, because I would leave right when the sun was, when I could see to walk, enough to see to walk. And I usually had places that were probably, I don't know, I'd walk a mile and a half or 2 miles away, and I would have the place where I was gonna sit down and watch the game trails, and I would sit there for a couple hours until the sun, was starting to get uh, around 10, and that's usually when the deer bed down in the daytime when it's hot, and they lay down, and then they'll start moving around again. They actually, they move around right uh, early morning and late evening, and the rest of the time they're laying down in the daytime, and then they forage all night long. So the best time to be hunting, where sitting and looking for deer, is first thing in the morning and in the evening. But the rest of the time, it's not worth hunting unless you're gonna like try to scare up a buck, or you're gonna go and beat the bushes and walk through areas and try to scare them out of their bedding areas in the daytime. And you can't hunt at night, so if you can find where they're going from their bedding area to the water area and back again, like they'll leave uh, early in the morning, and they'll head. The first thing they do is head for water. No, no, in the evening they get out of their bedding area and they'll head for water. That's the first thing they do, is head for water, and then from there, then they start foraging and stuff like that. And if you can find an area where they're doing that and find where they're moving around, or if they're migrating, like they do here, they migrate. So if you can find the areas where they're migrating, and there's like a big trail, like a highway, a deer highway, and you go sit down real early in the morning, you'll before they bed down, and then just wait and see if they walk by. Like if it's deer, like the usually what when you're hunting the does, you'll see first, because the bucks will have the does like clearing the path, and you, if there's a buck with them, usually the does will, and the young ones, the yearlings and stuff like that, they'll look back at the buck. And so then there's a buck with them, because they're looking for his cue, like to let him move forward more, or to stop, or whatever. He's directing them from a little ways away, and they'll look at the buck all the time to get the cue to see what they're supposed to be doing. So like first thing in the morning, late in the evening, best times. I think a lot of people see, from talking with people over the years, I think that most of the people that see a Bigfoot, it's total surprise. Bigfoot didn't know they were there. Um, it was just like a surprise to everybody. They didn't know there was going to be a Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot didn't know they were there. And it's like total accident. Otherwise, they would have never saw anything. You know. That's right. That's right, James. They do. Really smart. Really, the deer are pretty smart too. I've often wondered that. Like some of the Native Americans I know around here, they tell me that they call, like, some of them call the Bigfoot the ancient ones. And I don't know if that means that they're ancient, age wise, or if it means that they've been around a long time. Like, I don't know. But I do know that they were there before they were here. You know what I'm saying? So the tribes came after the Bigfoot was here already, and that's why they call it. I don't know if that's what they mean by the ancient ones, and it could be I don't know what the lifespan is on those things at all, and I've often wondered about that, like about if they can tune into our thoughts, like um, it, there's more to them. Like when I first started out, I thought they were just totally flesh and blood, and but the more that I go out and the more I talk to people and stuff like that, the more I learn that there's more to them than what's obvious. And so it's um, I still don't know for sure, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. You know what I mean? I'm just going by my own experience and what I learned from other people. The stories and stuff like that. One of the things that's kind of I've been lucky is I've been out in the public enough. I've been out in the public enough that people know who I am. So, and they know I'm not going to laugh at them, and so people open up to me. And some of people will tell me too, like, um, don't use my name, don't tell anyone, blah blah blah. They're still worried about what everybody thinks and stuff, or that's fine. I want to learn about as much as I can about them, so, or anything really, aliens, all that stuff. So, and when I got with Jeffrey, it was even better because now we had uh, even more notoriety, or a little bit of fame, or whatever you want to call it. But for me, it's not about the fame so much as it's about people finding out that they can get a hold of me and tell me their stories and stuff like that, and we don't even have to put them online. You know what I mean? I don't have to have you come and tell your story online. Like, I'm trying to learn more and more about these things. So everybody's story is a little bit more that I know, or it affirms or reaffirms something I learned already. You know what I mean? Like that I may not have, um, I've been maybe unsure about, but after I hear it like 10 times from different people that don't know each other, it starts like going, okay, that is one thing. Like and then if somebody says it again, you're like, okay, they did see a Bigfoot for sure, because you don't know to say that unless you've experienced that. Yeah, like I've never seen one in the face yet. That bothers me. Like that's the one thing I really, really, really want to do. I want to see one in the face. I never have. I have seen them, and I've never seen a close up of the face ever, not ever. And that's one of the things that keeps me going is I really want to see what they look like, or a really good picture. Yeah, the money shot. Man, and it could come from a video too. I don't have to personally see it, but, if somebody has a really good, and it drives me crazy, people put these pictures up, and if it's not really clear, I mean, you could tell it could be anything. You know what I mean? Like I even have some on my YouTube. It shows their back, and they're just standing there, or one of them sitting, and you know, uh, if it at least you could tell on the ones that I have up that it is what it is. You know, it isn't something you have to draw circles around or something like that for me to see it or anyone to see it. You can see it there. You know what I mean? But it might not, you can't see the face or anything like that, but at least you can tell that is what it is. No, nobody jokes about the little people. My wife's grandfather, full blooded Cherokee, would go out and talk with the little people all the time. And he was a painter. And I used to have a painting behind me, but now I keep changing things, what's behind me. But I had a painting. He's real famous in Oklahoma. There's paintings in all like the Hard Rock in Tulsa. But he's a real famous Cherokee painter. His name's Cecil Dick. You could even Google him and look at his paintings. They call him a Cherokee treasure, but he passed a few years ago. But he would laugh at the white man because, they would buy land around there, and they would they would start to build a house, and he would go over and tell them, "Look, don't put your house right there because that's the trail of the little people." And they would laugh at him. "Ha, that's so funny." And then, they would build their house, and then all of a sudden they start having ghosts, and they call it, what do they call those ghosts? The ones that play tricks and stuff like that. But they would call it that, and he would go, "No, that's the little people. They should have never built your house there." But he even made a painting of the little people. And one day, Thanksgiving, he was telling us about, he never told us about the little people painting that he was doing. But he started talking about it, and he said he had to get permission to finish the painting. He had all the painting, but he didn't have any little people in it. So he was, yeah, poltergeist. That's it, poltergeist. So they would call it poltergeist in their house, and really it was the little people. But they wouldn't give him permission. And just before he died, I think, like a couple of years before he died, they let him finish the painting. So we don't have the painting, but we have some prints of the painting. In fact, we don't have none of his paintings. Some of the other family members do, but we only have prints, but we feel lucky just to have prints. And some of the people that did have paintings, they donated it to the Cherokee museums and stuff like that, so that they could be kept for everyone to enjoy, and then everybody would just get prints, you know, and so it's cool, But the little people, they according to tradition, you can't even see them unless you fast and pray for 7 days, and then you can. And they even have traditions about Bigfoot too, but they call it Sukaloo or something like that. And one day I was been looking for the book. I want to start doing the bedtime stories again, and I have a whole bunch of books with stories in them, and I want to read Native American stories, like bedtime stories, and come on live and read actual Native American stories, like bedtime stories, and it would be cool. There might be some in North Carolina. I think they're in Tahlequah though. Where they have the Bureau of Indian Affairs main office in Tahlequah. There's a huge painting in there. I mean, like 15 feet long by 5 feet high, and it was hanging in the main, like when you go in the lobby. But now it's in their main meeting room. But like right now, we're still working on this bedroom. This bedroom got flooded out a whole bunch of times. The sewer pipe backed up, actually broke, and then the tree got in there and it backed up a whole bunch of times. And they would come out and, you know, roto rooter it, and it would stop backing up, but nobody ever put a camera down there for like 4 years. And then all of a sudden it would back up, and there's a bathroom right here to my left, and this used to be a garage, so it's like the low point, and the water would come up under the toilet and flood the whole room, and it went like half the room a whole bunch of times. It got so bad we couldn't even sleep in here or breathe in here. And then there's black mold under the walls and stuff like that. So we're having to remodel the bathroom and the bedroom, and I ran out of money for it. The landlady's helping me, but she's not real wealthy either. So we're taking a little of our own money and rent money, not all the rent money either, because that's what she lives on. So a little bit of the rent money and a little bit of our money, and we're slowly getting this room remodeled, and everything's packed up. Like I had bookshelves with all my books and everything, and my wife packed everything up, and then we ran out of money, and I thought I was going to be done already, and we're not. So somewhere in a box, somewhere is these books. Yeah, it's about time I go too. My wife said, "Don't stay on too long. Like, tell your story and get off." It's like, all right, I just wanted, actually, really, I just wanted to put my story from start to finish and actually have it labeled. I saw Bigfoot, and actually have my story, because there isn't one. There's no video where it's just my story. So now anybody can find it if they want to. You guys welcome to share it all you want. If anybody has their own podcast here, and they want me to get on and talk about it and other things, hit me up. I'm willing to go and talk about anything. I have a lot of experience with aliens, abductions, little people, Native American lore, all that stuff. Bigfoot for sure, but only, like, go ahead. I know a lot of people hasn't heard my story because uh, I never really put it out there, you know. I just been doing everything else, and I'm not on Paranormal Central anymore. They deemed that I'm not healthy enough. Like, I'm not TV material because I'm disabled. That's what I was told. So they're after the TV thing, and I'm too disabled to be TV material. I guess old and disabled, those two things. So I'm not good enough for TV because of that. So, you know, kind of sucks because that blindsided me. You know, I was not expecting it. You know, I expected them not to have me doing things with them so much, but I didn't know that I was just going to be like gone, you know. That kind of was not cool, but I understand, you know, when you really want to make it, you know, you want to make sure that you're the best of everything you have for TV. And so, you know, I thought, well, I don't need Paranormal, you know, Central to, I could still go on and do my own thing at my pace. And, um, you know, I don't care if I'm on TV, and I really don't care if I'm famous or anything. I love the stories. I love interacting with everybody on the chat. I love you guys and stuff. You know, I I'm here to just get my story out. Get the people that want to get their story out. I'm like the avenue that they could use. So I'm okay with, you know. At first it was like a little bit of a shock, you know, because it came like in a text message, and so it was like at first I didn't even know what I was, you know. It was almost like part of my life was missing for a little while. You know, it was like I've been doing that so long with them, and then all of a sudden it was just was like not there, and I was kind of lost for a little while. It was like, you know, I didn't know what to do, and then I thought, you know what, I could start my own YouTube channel, and I could go on and I could talk with everybody. I could do whatever I want, you know. And so I did, and that's what I'm doing, you know. Yeah, that is kind of a shame. That is. You're right, Steven. Right on the money, man. You know, now people that'll watch this later, they won't know what we're talking about, um, but you're right. You can't hear anything, Amanda. You can't hear me. Yeah, I got a text. That's how, you know, I was told that I'll tell you guys exactly. He trademarked Paranormal Central, the name, so he owns the name Paranormal Central. And then he texted me and told me it was my fault that he's not on TV, because the TV people aren't looking for a disabled person, right? So I was holding them back by being disabled, and so uh, because he owns everything, and that makes me an employee, even though I don't get paid or anything. And I was volunteering my time and my equipment and my computer and everything. I mean, I was doing it like friends. It was my friend. I thought that's what it was, and but then said that because that makes me technically an employee, he was letting me go because I'm too disabled, and that's not what TV producers are looking for. And no, he said no, um, not meaning any bad vibes or anything. Just that for him to be on TV and for the Paranormal Central to go forward, it had to have me off of it so that the so the show could go on. And and so then I just was gone. So yeah, that's actually what happened. I've never really said that in public, but I get it. I really do. I used to be a driven person myself. I mean, I used to work in the casino industry, and I worked my way up from an $8 an hour job all the way up to the marketing director. And then I learned computers, and I switched over to the computer department, and I headed up the computer department. I grew up in the restaurants. My family owned restaurants. And then at some point, I switched over to the food and beverage director for a little while. And at one point, I even had the marketing director, the food and beverage director, and the network administrator job all at one time at the casino. I held all three titles. I mean, the top positions in the casino for a long time. So, I mean, like, I understand what it takes, like, to be successful and stuff like that. In fact, and yeah, I'm not bashing him or nothing. I'm just telling you guys how that went down. Um, in fact, what I want to offer my services, and I mean free. Okay, I'm not for pay or anything, because I know other people that they want to have a podcast or do a vlog or something like that, and they don't know the technical side to it and what it takes or anything like that. And it used to be that you had to be physically on property or on site to be able to help somebody. And now that they have Skype and all this stuff, I could actually help people set their vlog or their blog if they only want to do audio and do a blog, or you want to do only a video and audio thing like what I'm doing right here. Um, I could help you pick out the most cost effective way to do it and seem or be the most professional for the least amount of money. And I mean, that's what I did uh, at the casino. That was my signature move. Was kind of like wrestling or whatever, your signature move. Mine was to do big giant things with a little bit of budget. So when I came out of when I got hurt and I came out of the casino and I ran into Jeff, that's what I started doing with Jeff. On a low budget or hardly no budget, try to be looking like that you're bigger than you are, whatever. And I don't care about being bigger than I am, but only like the difference. That's sometimes what sets you apart from everyone is how you sound and look and stuff like that. And really, you don't have to spend a ton of money to look or sound good anymore. The main thing is the computer. Tell you the truth, I mean, that might cost the most money out of all of it, but everything else is not that expensive. You know, but only I'm making myself available. Like, you guys to hit me up. Um, I think you could go to the about, in the YouTube. And this goes for anyone that is listening to the show that's not live also, and you listen later on, and you're another YouTube channel or something like that, and you need a little help, um, get it, hit me up. I'll help you out. I enjoy this, and I enjoy also watching people fulfill their dreams and do their thing and make things happen for their self. So I'm available for that, and uh, look forward to if anyone hits me up. Okay, what are we doing? So what did I do different? Now you can hear it? Huh. Okay. Right on, man. Yeah, I've been, I feel sorry for him a little bit because, I've been telling him for a long time, TV's out. You know what I mean? That's going out. That's when I was in the casinos industry. That's why I wanted to learn computers, and I had the casino send me to school to learn everything about. I learned the whole computer system, from how to build them, fix them, fiber optics, the whole thing. It costs like 7 or 8 thousand bucks to send me to Las Vegas to learn um, computers, and it was like a crash course in computers. And I'm pretty good with stuff like that. So I picked it up real good and came back and mastered it pretty much, and wrote all the commercials, all the ads. I wrote all that stuff. I mean, I was the guy. I created all the giveaways, promotions. I created the menus, all that. I mean, that was what I was doing, and I got paid really good to do those things. So now here I am. I thought my life was over. I died, right, and came back. At least I had my leg. I'm not the same. I can't work, but I can still do this kind of thing. Sometimes I can't. Like if I get a bad med and it starts making me have heart attacks for a week, now you won't see me. But other than that, I'm pretty good. Like I'm good to go. I don't know about the monk that invented roulette. All I know is roulette. I know a lot about gambling, and the casinos that could have roulette. They love people that play roulette because that is the highest odds against you. Okay, and if you're gonna gamble, um, the best odds are is a skill based game like 21, or you know a card game or something like that where there's some skill. Now the odds are still stacked against you. It favors the house, but only those are the best odds, for the player or whatever. The actual machines, like if you like to play slot machines, there's certain machines. Like, maybe I shouldn't talk about this. They might off me, but pick the one that has the highest jackpots. Like if you walk by and the highest jackpot say is $20,000, and there's one next to it that says $50,000, play the $50,000 one. Okay, And then the way they have it set up is a penny machine, a nickel machine, a dime machine, a quarter machine. They're all dollar machines, okay? All of them are dollar machines because you have to play max bet in order to have the best odds. So if you play 1 credit per line, it's the lowest odds and the lowest payout. And actually, the odds are against you. Like, even at max bet, the odds are against you, but they're better than anything else. You know what? And I mean, it's all luck really on that machine because the slot machine, the life of a slot machine is 16 billion bets. Okay. So in that 16 billion bets, it's only going to pay out so many of that jackpot and this jackpot, it's only going to pay out only so many times and then it'll flip the machine, it'll start over, right? But 16 billion bets. That's what the life of a slot machine is for a thing. But yeah, so if you like to play a skill based game like cards, 21, blackjack, whatever, and then also like a little advice on when you're playing that. If somebody sits down, okay, say you're winning, okay, and you're sitting there and you're winning, and somebody sits down and change the dynamic of the table, leave. As soon as you start losing, leave. That's why sometimes you'll be sitting there and then they'll change the dealer because they're changing the dynamic. So if they change the dealer, get up. Maybe you're getting lucky with a dealer, follow that dealer to the other table, wait and see where that one goes and goes back. Go to that dealer. If somebody moves around the table, like that changes the dynamic also. And another thing with slot machines, if you're in Vegas, or I don't think it works in tribal gaming, but in Vegas, Reno, Atlantic City, any of those, you can increase your odds of winning. Like go to, like if it has a hotel, say, and go to the desk, the front desk, and kind of stand off to the side and just sit there for an hour, have a drink, and watch. Because there is probably 5 slot machines that are in view of that front desk that are loose. Okay? And they are meant to draw you in and suck you in to, so like, and it's not going to be long because you're not standing in line checking into the hotel for a long time. So there's some that have better odds, but not all of them, right? But what they do, it's a psychological thing. While you're standing in line waiting to check into the hotel, ding, 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 that guy hit a jackpot. And you're like, oh, I can't wait to get my stuff in the room, and hit the floor, Ding, 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 another jackpot. Oh, man. Well, if you go over there and you stand there and your whole idea is to see which ones are the ones that are going ding, 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 and remember which ones those are. And you could do that standing by an elevator, a restaurant, like one of their restaurants or something, where you're sitting there eating and you keep seeing people hitting jackpots. It's only selected machines that they have set like that. There isn't anyone in a room at a computer saying, oh, that guy's got to lose, and then they tighten the machine. Okay, the machines are all set, preset, and then they run. That's it. If they want to change the machine, they have to open it up, and then there's 2 little chips inside the machine called random generators, random number generators, and they're constantly randomly selecting what it's going to land on. And then as soon as you hit bet, that stops. stops. And then it plays a game, reels or whatever, and then it shows you what it landed on, what it stopped at when you hit bet. And that's how it works. Just an interesting thing, huh? Yeah, they don't let me play blackjack. I can't. Any of the casinos around here, they don't let me play. Um, and I never really was trained uh, to win at blackjack. All you need to do is go get a basic blackjack book, how to play blackjack, and play by the book, right? Whatever that book teaches you, the basic strategy of blackjack, stay with that and you'll win. And then do the other things I told you, like if somebody sits down and changes the dynamic of the way it's dealt, get up. You know, if you start losing, if that changes the dynamic and you're losing, get away from there. You know, get up and move to another table until you start winning again. Even your gut feeling can go on this because it's luck, right? A lot of luck. So if you have like a great gut feeling for things, like even if you're walking by a slot machine and one of them's like calling you, you know what I mean? I've heard it so many times, like that slot machine's calling me. Um, Go put a couple of bucks in it. You never know. It might hit 10 grand or something. You know, you might be a real happy camper. I did that one time and I didn't hit 10 grand. I wish I would have max betted, but I didn't, you know. It's actually luck with the dealer too. They don't know. I'm not sure about I'm not so sure about cruise ships, but because there's no laws, you know what I mean? Like um, when you're on a cruise ship and then you head out, you're there's no law on the open sea. In other words, so they could do whatever they want out there, and there's no law. So you know, gamble at your own risk on a cruise ship. And it's almost the same way on, and I hate to say it, but it's almost the same way in tribal, but only they do set laws on tribal gaming, but only it isn't the same kind of laws that are with Nevada or Atlantic City or, you know, those places. And usually they can tighten the machines tighter, you know, and how they change the odds in the cards is like if you to get the best odds on like say 21 blackjack, you want to play a single deck because then you know how to bet better, right? But when you have like a six shoe deck, right? Like there's a shoe that holds six decks or 10 decks, and then they're going to go through all those decks. Well, there's a lot of blackjacks or not blackjacks in that, you know, and then it changes the dynamic and it changes the odds, you know. Kind of interesting. We went from Bigfoot to gaming, but it's two of my most favorite subjects right there. Believe it or not, is gaming and Bigfoot. Yeah, and they won't let me play blackjack because I play by the book, right? I play by the book. Don't when it says don't stand, don't stand. When it says hold, hold. You know what I mean? Like and you can win on this. You can win out of a six deck deal too. You can if you play by the book. Like if it says double down, double down. You know, only double down on the certain ones where it says double down. You know, but if you play like that, you'll win. Like double down on 11, and you know the odds are that there's going to be a 10 card come up, and you're going to blackjack right there, right? So only double down on 11 or whatever. You guys know. You know what I'm talking about. If you don't, get a little book, a little blackjack book, and learn to play 21. Yeah, right. Sometimes if you get 15, stay. right? I've heard of people saying stay on 12, because your chance of busting getting the bus card, and you don't want to take the bus card. You rather lose the hand than take the bus card. Let somebody else take the bus card. And normally if you take the bus card, if you watch the table, okay, as the play goes, normally if you didn't take the bus card and then the other guy didn't take the bus card, the dealer gets the bus card. Okay? But if you start taking the bus card, then the dealer starts getting blackjacks. You know what I'm saying? You change the dynamic of the table by the way you play. But that's a little clue on gaming. Way off where we were though, in the hills with the Bigfoot. But I love you guys, man. I'll hang out with you guys for a while. But actually, I do gotta go. I've been on 2 hours and 10 minutes. I promised I would help fix dinner tonight, and my wifey, I've been with her so long. I like hanging out with her as much as I like hanging out with you guys. So, but only I owe her a dinner, and I gotta. I'm a man of my word. So I wouldn't be married 40 years if it wasn't for that. So I gotta go. You guys have the rest of Sunday or Super Bowl Sunday, whatever you guys want to call about it. You guys have a great one. I hope you enjoyed my story. I'm glad I have it in one place now, and everybody can find it. And if JC Johnson's family are watching this or watch this, my heart goes out and my prayers go to your family and to you guys. He was a great man, a real great man. And my prayers go out to you guys, all his friends, the people that knew him well. My prayers go out to you guys. And all my friends, my chat friends, you guys, I love you guys. It's good seeing you. We never know when our time is up, so I'm glad we're all sitting here and being able to do this even, because we never know what day that is or when your number's up. We don't know. So one more day we get to hang out and have fun in the chat. Love you guys. And I will see you probably Wednesday or something like that. It's hard for me still to say what day I'm going to be because of the work we're doing in the room and everything. 'Cause sometimes I have to tear this whole setup down, and then we have to move everything out, but then we're not done with the room, and then I got to move it all back in. And sometimes after I get done doing this, I don't feel like putting it all back together sometimes. But lately, I've been feeling pretty good since the patch. So you will see me again this week for sure. And if it isn't on a setup, it'll be on my phone or something like that. So, and I'm going long and I'm stalling, and my wife's going to kick my butt. But I'll see you guys, okay? Good night.